Have you ever wondered whether the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment, and acted from that place?
Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your hosts Brian Berneman and Kayla Greenville, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world.
We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and changemakers.
From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Welcome to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. This week, it's during the lockdown of New Zealand. We're in phase 4 of this COVID-19 lockdown, and I think that we're on day 16, if I remember correctly, which every day seems to be the same. But anyways, I'm here with Shay, and I want to actually get you, Shay, to introduce at least a little bit of yourself first, because I always think I cannot make justice to people. Like if I just read what I have, and say oh, this is what this person does or what they've done. So first of all, thank you for being here and for joining me. And I'll leave to you to introduce yourself at least shortly.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me. I'm Shay, social entrepreneur, ocean lover, surfer, sustainability activist, and pretty much just my story started directly in this space about 3 years ago. But the indirect sort of beginnings of everything that I'm doing right now started when I was growing up. So I grew up just on the border of West Auckland, in a small suburb in Auckland called Greenhithe, and my dad was really into looking after the planet, annoying me by telling me to turn off the lights all the time, make sure I recycle, all of that sort of stuff. And we were always in nature, and I think that was a massive part. So we're always doing bushwalks at the beach, surfing, swimming, and that was a huge part of my lifestyle when I was growing up. I'm very grateful for that. So I went to university, and I left home and went and moved to Raglan because I was like, I want to go surfing all the time. And I also want to go to university. So I went and I studied environmental sciences, and I moved here to Raglan, and sort of commuted back and forth, and really loved what I studied. After uni, I just had this massive draw to leave New Zealand, and I actually traveled for about 6 years. I went to some of the most isolated parts of the planet. So I was doing a bunch of surfing, but obviously you need money to travel. So I actually worked in the opposite of what I'm doing now, which is the super yacht industry. So right now I'm working in sustainability directly, and back then I was in the super yacht industry, which was really interesting. It tore at my soul completely. I was doing something that, my morals and values and how I wanted to see the world were here, and I was working in an industry which was here, which I think for a lot of people is super relatable. So I sort of came out the other end of that, and the biggest thing that I took away is that I went to some of the most isolated parts of the planet, so beautiful, incredibly isolated. You can't get to these places with a plane or on a standard holiday. It's only places really that you can get to with a boat with long range. So I was sort of standing in spots going, holy crap, has anybody actually ever really been here before? But all I saw in every single place was plastic pollution follow me everywhere. And it was just such a resounding moment for me. And I was just like, holy crap, it's inescapable. What we've done is cataclysmic. And I think just the scale really hit home. So once I'd finished in that industry, I came back and I was like, I really need to do something about this. I need to sort of have some sort of action to give back and do my little bit to sort of steer us in a way that's off this path, because it was just pretty messed up what I saw, and I couldn't come out of it and unsee it, I suppose. So yeah, 3 years ago I started CaliWoods. It's officially recognised now by Arkina as a social enterprise here in New Zealand. We focus on sustainability education and sell eco products that exist to create a more sustainable alternative or to replace single use. And then the majority of the money goes back into education, whether that's online or in in-person events.
Nice, wonderful. And like, I think that I can't remember exactly, but I think that the first time that we met was around almost 3 years ago. It was one of the first events of Conscious Action, I think.
Yeah, I remember that. I think it was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was like, I think that like perhaps somewhere between 2.5 years and 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because during this time, during this last 2.5 years, I personally have seen a huge change. And I mean, there's still a long way to go, but a huge change in people's consciousness in terms of these issues, in terms of like actually people getting products that are more friendly for the environment. And like, and actually, like, I mean, I remember back then, I don't remember if it was, I think 2 years ago, I was going to go visit my family in Argentina. And
yeah, I remember
like,
that too.
and I was like, what do I take? What do I take? And I ended up taking some of your reusable straws.
Yeah.
And it was so nice to be able to like give them something that they are still using. Like my niece and nephew still, like, they drink their morning smoothie with this straws, and it's like it's so nice to be able to actually like see that a lot of people are actually getting in front of it. But also this, I think that, like, for me at least, I don't buy a lot of things and I don't give a lot of gifts, but it was like I was going to go and see my family like for the first time in a while, and I thought, like, I need to take them something. And I was like, what do I take them? Like, and that was a very good one. And I'm going to, and before we start talking about like a few other things, one of the questions that during this podcast we are asking everyone that is coming as a guest, and I'm going to leave some of these questions for the end, but I do want to talk now about what is your one quote unquote unconscious action that you can't believe that you did or you used to do, and how much have you learned or changed since then?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this, and I wanted to kind of keep it relative to or relatable to the space that I work in. So that's mainly, CaliWoods is mainly educating about waste reduction and living more sustainably. So we do waste reduction as our main thing, and then we branch off into other little subtopics to give people a pretty good, well-rounded idea of sustainability. So working in that sort of area every day and then thinking about this question was quite interesting, because I actually came back to resource use and the use of waste and plastic. So I have vivid memories of about 5 years ago of, asking bartenders for a straw for my drink. And it's really good. It's a really good reminder, because I'd say, even though it's not a huge unconscious action, obviously there was, stuff outside of that straw for your drink. But it gives you sort of like a sliding scale of relativity. So I can think back and go, hey, you used to actually ask for a plastic straw. So you need to really utilize that information and utilize that experience in your life and transfer it over to people who aren't quite in that same space as you yet. And, it doesn't have to exist for waste. It can exist for sort of any type of conscious action, whether you're talking about ethical fashion, taking care of the planet, taking care of your mind, your body, all of these things. It's coming back to where you once were in your journey, and everybody has, something from here to here. And if you're here, you've got to remember what it was like here.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool. You can be quick to judge, but you've got to think back. It's like, hey, we all started somewhere.
Yeah, and that's something that with every conscious action event, every topic that we've ever touched on, I always remind people we're all in a journey, and I didn't know what I know 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, however long it was that I found out about that information. I didn't know before, and that's why coming from that place of education, coming from that place of sharing knowledge and being kind and compassionate to everyone, because everyone, at least this is what I believe. I believe that every person is kind. Every person actually cares.
Yeah.
We don't have inherently, we just don't have the information, or we are living within a system that doesn't perhaps enable us to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about that, what coming now to this moment present now, we're going through an unprecedented time. What have you noticed on your own journey this last few weeks or month, and what do you think, or what have you noticed about society, or at least people here in New Zealand, or if you have noticed something bigger as well?
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic. I've got a lot of thoughts and theories that are my own on this. It's one thing I noticed about myself initially is that I really bought into this mass hysteria kind of fearful mindset, which was so interesting to watch myself go through, because I'm very much not like that at all ever. So I had a few days of a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of feeling unstable, and I love change. So I'm a person who absolutely thrives off change. I can't have anything stay the same for long. So I can imagine for people who are on the opposite side of that spectrum personality wise, it would have been really daunting. And then I kind of snapped out of it, and then I went through about 5 days of just not knowing really where I stood in terms of my position, where sustainability stood, where I stood with CaliWoods. There was a lot of uncertainty for a while, and I mean, there still is. But I think for, a week to two there, it was really, really uncertain. And I think it's been really interesting because I've had moments of, if I'm honest, extreme frustration with people. I'm like, why are people leaving notices in people's letterboxes about them walking their dog more often than usual? I'm just like, why? I was like, come on, guys. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, you've seen the best of humanity come out. So I think there's a massive positive, constructive, beautiful actions happening right now. And then there's Facebook feeds with trolling comments. And it comes down to one, what sort of person do you want to be through this? Two, what are you digitally feeding yourself with and allowing to come into your energy space? it's your choice to open your phone, click on Facebook, click on a post, read the comments. That is an action that I'm still doing daily, but I am trying to really rein in. Are you listening to the mainstream media every single day? Is that healthy? I don't have that answer, but I know for myself it's not. So yeah, I think there are a couple of really awesome things to sort of take out of it. It's like you can actually choose how you respond to a scenario. You can choose your reaction, you can choose your emotions, you choose what you allow into your space. And in turn, you can pretty much reinvent yourself right now. If there ever was a time to create new habits, learn new skills, make fresh, beautiful food for your family, now is the time. We've never had this time before. And I think it also gives you a lot of space to consider how you want to come out the other end of it. It's like, oh, you're doing remote work from home, your job is just as productive right now. Do you really want to go back to how things were? And I personally don't believe that it can't go back. to normal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a beautiful time to create positive change.
Yeah, and like I've been talking, like whether it has been with other people or like with content that I've been putting out, and it's interesting because I talk about this, like I don't believe that we're going to go back to what has been the normal lately. I do believe that we're going to go back to ancient ways. Like we're going to really go back to ways that enable us to relate differently to the earth, to connect differently and relate differently to other human beings. And I think that this moment in time that has allowed us all, whether like you're from here or there, this ethnicity or this religion, like this has touched everyone. And it put us all in back in this, like in a sense, in this same level field. It's not completely like that, but it has brought a lot of people's awareness to a very different place. And as you say, like the people that realize now that I can actually do this job and do it from home, and I don't need to like go with the car like for 1 hour
every day for 2 hours.
Yes, exactly. And it's like all of that extra stress, all of that extra time. Like I don't believe that we're going to go back. There's going to be a period, of course, of like this transitional period, but also I believe like this is an amazing opportunity. Like not to minimize the effect that it's having, not to minimize like the people that are affected with it, but the opportunity that we have, that the earth is having now. Like I mean, I've been seeing like images from different parts of the world that are like blue sky for the first time in like in I don't know how long, in China, or like the canals in Venice, or like in India they can see after 30 years in some areas the Himalayas. Like this is that little breath that like we're taking, that little pause that the earth is like, see, I can regenerate easily. So it's like, are we going to go back to business as usual to get back into that pollution, or are people going to start waking up a little bit more now that we can see what's the reality?
Yeah, it's for sure a really beautiful, interesting time and topic. Absolutely. It's like kind of just interesting to see how everybody's reacting and watching yourself react too.
Yes, like I mean, for me, like I'm in a sense really lucky and really privileged in the fact that I have an understanding of myself. I have my practices to keep me completely centered and balanced and like okay with the situation, and to be able to even thrive in it. And as you said, like there was something that you said about like changing who we are. Like actually last night I did this webinar on rewriting your story. Like who do you want to be now that you have the time to actually stop? Like do you want to continue being that person, or do you want to change? And like a lot of these things for me come with the fact that most people have no idea what they stand for and what they care about. Like most people don't know that. Like you mentioned before, like you grew up with nature and with your parents, like giving you the chance to recycle or to do the proper things in certain areas, but you have been by choice educating yourself and putting yourself into those spaces because you care about that, and now people have the chance. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, this is going to be like, I actually care about that. How are we going to be the ones that enable that? And I think that what you're doing, like, and I follow like the content that you put out all of the time, and I think that like your content is awesome because it's easy for people to understand it, like to be able to understand like, this is an easy swap from that. Like I saw, when did you release like your checklist, like some like the CaliWoods checklist? Like
Yeah, we've got 2 checklists, so it's quite interesting. So we did our first one, I think it was 2 years ago, and we've just done a checklist 2.0 because we were like, oh, we can't keep talking about this stuff because people have moved past it. And it's interesting that you do bring that point up in terms of content because we intentionally kind of do that. Like if you look at the bell curve of consumers and you've got, you know, your middle cohort, and here are the zero wasters, and here are the people that are never ever going to change no matter what. I don't really care about these 2 people. I care about this person or these people because these are the ones that are in the majority, and they're the ones that, you know, I'm not preaching to the choir and I'm not preaching to somebody who's never going to change, but there's a lot of space in that main bell curve of consumers or people who actually sort of have that potential to make some really easy swaps. So yeah, I think we definitely sort of do that on purpose.
Yeah, nice. And what's like in terms of like to get to know you a little bit more and so people know you a little bit more, like what is it about the ocean and the beach? Like what is it for you that relationship?
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those ones that when you think about really important things in your life, it's like it's a feeling that you can't really explain or put into words too easily. But the ocean for me is something that I need like all the time to sort of keep myself sane, I guess. It's just probably like the one environment where everything is just super chill and relaxed, and it's just super beautiful. I think the most resounding kind of moments in the ocean are when it's just you in the ocean. You know, you can't have a cell phone out there, especially when you're surfing. You know, you can't have a cell phone, can't be in contact. It's just you in the ocean, or you a couple of mates in the ocean, and it's just this absolute sort of freeing feeling. And I suppose a real connection to a place and to nature and to the water. There's something about it that I can't quite put my finger on, but yeah, I've always been like that, been a water baby ever since I was kind of born. You know, my parents could never get me out of the ocean when we're swimming and stuff like that. So I think it's in a way it always links back to that. So everything that I do in sustainability, I'm not just talking to the ocean people, you know, I'm really trying to hit that mainstream cohort of society. And I think in our content and our marketing, there's always an allusion to ocean, but I'm not ever standing there with my surfboard going, I'm a surfer and we're supporting this, and it's directly about the ocean, because I think the ecosystem is so multi-dimensional and connected, that focusing on that one environment too much might ostracize some of that mainstream demographic we're going for. But it's a very, very important part of my life, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like for me a lot of times when I'm talking with people, and like one of the things that I say is like every time that I went to businesses or to schools to talk about like becoming zero waste or reducing our footprint, I always like spend the first part always talking about what is it that they care, like do they care about the ocean, do they care about the parks, do they care about the mountains, do they care about like what is it, like what is that connection, because when
and
you
I
have
think
that connection it's good.
Exactly, yeah, for any person, you know, you need to have your why, and you need to have sort of that deep connection to something or someone or some purpose, because if you don't, when times get hard, you kind of lose your way. So I think really having that defined for anybody is super important. It's like, what actually really matters to me? What do I actually really, really care about? You know, what do I wake up in the morning for? And if you can sort of define that and have whatever you're doing in your life centered around that, it doesn't need to be directly, you know, just because I like surfing doesn't mean that I'm going to be a surf instructor, because you know, so it's kind of like, okay, cool, I've got that core purpose, that core why. How can I connect into that every single day?
Yeah, and speaking about every single day, and of course this now it's a little bit different, but so that people can understand, because I feel there's a lot of times with solopreneurs or people that a lot of times we see the Instagram live, we see it's all amazing, and this person travels the world and is surfing every day, but there's a lot of work as well. So
yeah,
what
there is.
what's your, before at least, or perhaps it's similar, but what is your day to day look like? Or do you have a routine, or are there certain days that you don't do any work, or how is your week?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you have something that you're really passionate about, it doesn't turn into work, I suppose. Like sometimes I'm sitting there doing accounting going, oh my God, I hate my life right now. But you know, most of the time I'm really uplifted by what I do, because I know that every sort of task feeds into, you know, a purpose. But day to day, I'd say that at the moment I'm waking up pretty early, so sort of sunrise, doing a bit of yoga, and then I sort of try to get about 5 to 6 hours of CaliWoods related work done every day, and from that I think I'm at a pretty productive level. I used to do really long hours when we were first setting up the business, and now I've got it to a point where I'm like 6 hours is pretty good, and I maintain like really good productivity through that time. There's a lot of extra stuff that we take on that I do hours for, and that, you know, the team that I have working with me do hours for, that we take upon ourselves because we are a social enterprise, you know. So if we were just straight selling, straight marketing, I think it would be a lot easier. But you know, we've got all of these other things to consider as well. So we're currently going through our B Corp certification. So you know, lots of things to consider for that. Yeah, day to day, wake up, have a stretch, get 6 hours of work in, hopefully get a surf in, and then do it all over again.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, and I think that there's a couple of things that are interesting in what you said, because I feel like when people understand what is their purpose and what is their why, and if we are able to use that at work, it doesn't feel like work as that negative connotation as we have with work. Like, I love doing what I'm doing. Like, I love being able to create events, and to be able to talk to people like you, and to be able to ideate with other people and come up with different things to do, and run all of the meditation classes and helping people relax. And for me, it's not work. I would do it, in essence, I would do it for free. If money wasn't a thing in the world, I would still be doing what I'm doing. And that is one of the key things. But the other one that was interesting of what you mentioned is that there is this thing about doing the right thing. And when you want to do the right thing, as you mentioned, getting being a social enterprise and going for B Corp certification, you need to do that extra effort. But at the end of the day, when we are aligned with those values, that extra effort actually is worth it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what, just to get a little bit of the whole picture here, you spent some time living in Bali as well, right? During the year? I don't know now what's that's going to be like, but
yeah. So I do 6 months New Zealand, 6 months Bali. So that was my goal from the start when I started CaliWoods. So I wanted something that served the planet and served my lifestyle as well. And I don't like winter because on the boats, when I did that 6 years of traveling, we had constant summer the whole time. So I actually haven't had a winter in 10 years.
Wow.
So it's kind of interesting how if you have a vision and a purpose, and you create your business around, you know, providing for yourself and for others as well. And you know, I didn't want to wake up every morning and just do something for money, because that wasn't going to drive me or make me happy. And so I really thought out really quite in depth as to what that looked like for me, you know. And it didn't happen straight away, but it happened. I just couldn't quite give up that transient kind of lifestyle. As I said before, like change. So for me, having the business was a way for me to give back, a way to satisfy a lot of goals that I have around environmental activism and sort of creating positive change, and then also to have the lifestyle that makes me the happiest, which in turn means that I can give back more, you know, if I'm in a good place. So
yeah. And how is that? Because I actually, like, I got asked a couple of times this, and it's not about like being negative or anything, but like a lot of people like tell me like, but like you're talking all about this sustainability and you're flying. Like how like how is that for you? Like, I know for me, like, it's an easy thing. Like, I'm reducing everything else that I can, and like to go and visit my family, to go and travel, that I feel like it's one of my biggest learnings. There's no alternative now, like, unless I would have a lot of time to go buy an electric boat.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Brian, honestly. So every time I get on the plane, I feel like I want to have something around my neck and then a sign saying like, I feel really guilty about flying. I'm like, oh. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I do a lot of things like you said, and for yourself too, you know, you've reduced in a lot of other ways, whether it's like how you move when you're in one place, or how you eat, or the work that you're doing, you know, outside of things. And it's a relativity thing. So I suppose it's a difficult question. I definitely feel guilty about it. I don't have the answers. So I do 2 flights a year internationally, so to Bali and back. And I definitely feel guilty about it, and it sucks.
Yeah, but it's interesting because I mean, I don't feel guilty, and that is one of the things that I notice with a lot of people that are in this space, that there's a lot of that guilt, and for me, like, I don't feel the guilt because like I'm doing the best that I can with what I want, and it's my choice to go and travel and do that. And it's not that I'm just traveling 300 times per year and like doing everything mindlessly. Like, I mean, you live in these 2 places. Like, the only way that you have is to go by plane. So like, it's the interesting thing about like understanding, like, yes, there's a footprint there, but it's one that, unless you decide to change your entire life, which then that would have a negative impact on you, then you have to do that.
No, it's a good perspective, and like I have sort of thought a little bit along those lines as well. But I'll take that on board more, I think.
And what do you like? I mean, Bali is a different place than in New Zealand. Like, what are the things that you notice of at least the people around you, not just everyone in society, but the people around you? Like, what do you notice that is different between people here and people in Bali?
Yeah, so in Bali, I find that it's a lot easier to find people sort of with similar mindsets and similar goals. So there are a lot of people here that are in the expat community that have businesses that are sort of self-starters, or, you know, doing things a little bit differently. And I like to have the perspective of the grounding from home. I love to have like my roots at home, and then I also love to be fluid and constantly changing, and that kind of keeps my head fluid as well, I think, and like the ideas that I'm pushing with sustainability. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of business owners here. There's a lot of like young business owners, which I find is a little bit harder to sort of come to in New Zealand because everybody is so spread out. Whereas in Bali, it's like definitely little tiny hubs. So it's really inspirational, but at the same time, I think changing my environment from a Western, you know, world-class sort of place to live like New Zealand, where everybody's, you know, relatively privileged and educated. Of course, there's exceptions, but you know, we're talking about generalizations here, whereas in Bali, it's technically a third world country and perspectives are really different, consumption's really different. And I think it keeps me really grounded because it's like, okay, cool, we've got, it keeps me in that like global sort of problems of how I think about sustainability and stuff, because it is really different. Yeah.
And I think that it's really interesting always like having those different perspectives, like being able to see like, this is happening here, but over there that's not happening. And like I always think more globally. Like I feel like I'm a citizen of the world. Like I'm an earthling. I don't feel like yes, I've been living now in New Zealand for 5 years and I live the majority of my life in Argentina, but I feel like I'm of the world. And if there's a part of the world that is doing that and we're all doing that other thing, we are still doing that. Like and being able to see those differences are like, they keep that fire going. They keep me focused on like, okay, like we still need to keep on doing this work because there's a lot of places that don't have it.
For sure. And I mean, where we're coming from with sustainability is a very privileged place. You know, we've got the time and the energy and the resources to put our brain space and our physical energy and our emotional energy into creating change. And I think that's a very privileged place to be. And I don't take that lightly. You know, it's like, okay, cool. I see a lot of people who aren't in that position in New Zealand and in Bali too. And it's kind of like, I take that as a bit of a responsibility to be like, okay, cool, I've got the time, the privilege, the money to sit here and ponder these questions. Whereas, you know, there's a lot of people who are just pondering how they're going to get their next meal. So how do we create a system change that's fair for everyone?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I think that this feels for me like the time for that. Like we have been like, I mean, I've been able to as an individual to be on my own like creation of my change, my journey, to be able to make the change within me. But most people, as you say, like they haven't had the time to do that. Even people like in privileged places like here in New Zealand. And it's like now we are in this moment where in the majority of the world, like things stopped and things actually like can be created. Like in a sense, it could be from scratch. It's like, okay, what do we want the world to look like from now on? And of course, there's still a lot of people that are on survival mode, but in general, as a like civilization, we are in a place where we can actually, you know, like do that little chunk of like, what if instead of doing that, like let's come up with something different. That's that time.
Yeah, and you know what? Like if you're an individual with the resources to ponder this, or if you're a business, or if you're a leader, like you have a responsibility not to waste this opportunity. I think. Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions out there that need to have answers to them. And you know, there's not going to be a one size fits all answer to this. There's going to be a lot of people working on little different pieces of this puzzle for it to all come together. And it's, I think it's a beautiful, exciting time to sort of see humanity come through.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just a few questions that, and I already like ask you to ponder a little bit around these questions. So, what is one resource that you would recommend to other people?
So I have had a lot of benefit, and this is, I suppose, relevant to the conscious action community. I've had a lot of benefit of sort of tapping into what's on Mindvalley at the moment. So I found like a couple of courses that were super specific to sort of my circumstance and what I felt I needed to work on, and that was really great. Yeah, I think it's an awesome time to be filling yourself up with like positive, constructive information. And there's a lot of stuff out there right now that we can't control. So taking ownership of the things that we can, is really important. So if you're like, watching 7 hours of Netflix a day, how about cut it down to 2 and then do 2 hours of cool shit, And I mean, Tiger was great. Don't get me wrong. Like, that shit blew my mind. It made me kind of good about my life. But yeah, I won't go on and sort of do that sort of stuff. So I think it's kind of good to watch your personal behavioral habits of what you're putting in your body, both in terms of like your food and your nutrition, but also your electronic content.
Yeah, nice, good one.
Gaia instead of Netflix.
Yes, that's a good one. Yes,
yeah,
definitely. Like, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff on Netflix, but as you say, like just making sure that we are like putting the right nourishment into our brain as well. Like,
yes, for sure. And sometimes it's nice to just watch something mindless and switch off, but at the same time I always kind of ask myself, well, it's like, what am I switching off from, and is it healthy? And it's like, cool, can I acknowledge what I'm switching off from? And like, yeah, if I can, then like, sure, 2 hours of Netflix watching something silly might not be super bad, but I think it's really important to be aware of that at this time particularly.
Yes, definitely. What is your one go-to tip that you'd like to share? This is a challenge one.
Yeah, so I've actually done this. I did have a think about it because you sent me these questions earlier in the day, and I did have a think about it, and I just wanted to sort of say something that's really relevant right now, because I think it's super important to sort of acknowledge where everybody is at individually and collectively too. So I just sort of wrote down a little thing as I said, we're in a unique time of disruption, but it's also a very positive opportunity. So now is the time for you to set new boundaries, set goals, implement different habits, create some positive change. It could be as easy as changing your KiwiSaver fund over to something socially responsible, which, by the way, those investments have actually come out on top during this time. Is it creating new household habits? Is it creating, new boundaries for everybody that is in your household around communication, around how you're feeling, around actual physical attributes, around how we're treating Papatua Nuku, our Mama Earth? So yeah, I think it's basically around that. if that's it.
Beautiful. Yeah, like,
just utilize this time proactively and positively.
Yes, and I think that's like so necessary. Like, I mean, this is one of the things that I work with people like ongoing, but at this time, this is super necessary to be able to actually create that that routine and those habits and that way of being that actually serves you at this time. As you say, like, boundaries are a huge one. Like, to understand like what are your boundaries and what to say no to, how to communicate, how to change, so we can actually grow. Because I all the time tell people, like, the only constant in life is change. Like, that's the only thing. So learning how to like surf the wave instead of getting crashed.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had an opportunity like this before, and I think in a way, especially in the sustainability space, and I think in the conscious action space too, it's like everybody has been pleading for change. We had 170,000 Kiwis march because they want climate action. Everyone's been clawing at the walls for change, and we finally have it, and it's it's been in an unforeseen and undesirable way, but
Mhm.
how can we utilize this, because this is our opportunity, you know.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and as you say, like this, and it's been so interesting because I saw, like, on the first few days of isolation, like I saw this post that it was something around like the climate change. People should get the COVID-19 media team to be able to create the change, and I thought, like it's it's unfortunate, as you say, that this is what it's taken to wake up and to create a little bit, or to be able to see the possibility of change. But as you say, like, how are we going to use it? That is where, go back to your own words, like that taking responsibility and being the leader, because we have this privilege. So what are we going to do with it?
Yeah, and honestly, Brian, like if the people listening out there, and you as well, you know, it's like, if you've been working in this space pre-corona, you are needed more than ever right now. You know, like this is the time, like this isn't a 4-week holiday for people who have been working on change before corona. This is the time where we've almost got to be working even harder, because and I mean, I don't mean putting in like 12 hours a day at home and like not taking care of yourself. It's being strategic and going, okay, what was I wanting before corona? And now that everybody is so malleable, so dynamic, and so flexible about change, like disruption, people are way more likely to start new behaviors, right? How can we utilize this time where we're in a dynamic environment, a fluid environment, to really bring these things into the forefront? So I think that's a really important sort of part that's come out of a lot of what I've been doing over the past couple of weeks when I've been speaking to different people. It's like, it's not doom and gloom. Like, this is what we've actually been asking for in a roundabout way. It's like, how do we come out of it so that we're actually sort of treating the planet the way that we need to be, you know, and treating ourselves as humans and as a species on this planet, how we actually being a positive player, you know, here, and just being a not positive player.
Yes, and it's like I think I was talking to a friend the other day. Like, we were talking about our own meditation practices, and and I told him, you know, this is why we've been training and doing our practices. And the same with, as you mentioned, with sustainability and people in this space. The same with artists. It's like these are the moments that our entire life, or however long that has been, like we've been like working towards having this opportunity. Like, this is the moment. Beautiful.
Which is so inspiring. And it's I was on a call the other day with all of the other Kina certified social enterprises, and it was interesting to watch. You know, there were people in one camp where it was like, oh, we're just sort of ticking along and, you know, blah, 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 blah. But I think by the end of the call, everyone was really uplifted by community and by people saying like, hey, wait a second, like, you know, social enterprise should actually come out of this way on top, because people are a lot more predispositioned to be supporting local and supporting a cause at this time, you know?
Yes, definitely. Yes. And talking about that uplifting, what was your latest act of kindness, whether that is big or small?
Yeah, so we're actually about to do like an adopt a family over in Bali. So for $50 $50 every fortnight, you can feed a family. A lot of people in Bali have you know, so much of their income comes from tourism, and everybody's left. So I think over there's going to be, you know, we're really lucky in New Zealand that we've got a government that gives us subsidies and benefits, but that doesn't exist there. So we're going to do that, which will be really nice.
Wow. Beautiful. Wow, that's so nice to hear. Like, yes, it's and I mean, that is a
How about you, Brian? What have you done?
I was the last. I would say actually, just yesterday, my housemate wanted to do a little video for her grandkids.
Yeah.
Like, so she got me to help her. So I not only acted on the video,
Yeah.
we recreated this children's book. I'm
Oh,
not going. I'm not going to put it online or anything.
I reckon you should.
But I helped her doing that, and then I edited. So yeah, it was like
Oh,
like a really nice thing for her, and it's just
yeah, that's
little
awesome.
thing. Yeah. Big question now. What is one thing you wish the world knew?
So I actually, when I wrote this question down, I left it blank because I was like, nah, I'll think of something after our conversation once we've sort of been through everything. And I think I have actually come to it, which is
Nice.
that people need to step into, or people need to seize this opportunity. We all need to sort of step into our power right now. And even though we have physical distancing and restrictions on our movements and restrictions on activities, no one can control what's going on in there.
Mm.
So I think if we had more people questioning what really is going on, where all this money is kind of going from and coming to, and these bigger questions, I don't think that we'll ever really find the answers to them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of things that you can control within your own space. So I think if people, one thing that I'd love everybody in the world to kind of come to actualize is stepping into your power and owning your power. And I struggle with that every single day. Sometimes I open Facebook and I'm like, but just being able to come back into that space is really important for me. And I think world would be a very different place if we could all do that consciously.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and I think like people like you are actually, and as you say, like it's not perfect, and some days like there's a little bit more challenge, but like living and doing what you believe that is right, and being actually, like, I always love the quote of being the change that you want to see in the world. Like,
Yeah.
I think that like the more people out there like you that are able to do that, then the world would be very different.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yes. I think that we've been talking now for a while, and I just want to make sure that I don't forget asking, how can people find you? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so CaliWoods is probably the voice that I use. So I don't use my personal name really. I always voice through the brand, but personal stuff actually goes on LinkedIn. So I speak as myself on LinkedIn. And then, so that's just Shay Lawrence. And then CaliWoods is CaliWoods_eco as the handle on both Instagram and Facebook. So that will have stuff that comes from, the business and sort of your brand voice, but also I personally write quite a lot of the content. Sometimes I write it as me and sometimes I write it as CaliWoods. Just depends on what kind of mood I'm in. But we also have a really cool EDM, so a email newsletter, which is weekly. So you can find the sign up for that on the website, which is just CaliWoods.co.nz.
Yeah, and I really recommend people going to check it out because I do think that the content that you put out is not only really good educationally, I think that it's quite engaging, and it's really well done. So yeah, I really recommend it. Well,
Yes.
it's nice, like a lot of times, like for me to be able to to have this chance of promoting people that I actually read their content and I see what they're doing. It's not like there's this brand that is doing good and I have no idea because I don't personally partake, but like I follow you, so Yes.
Yeah, it's funny putting together content. You know, you sort of read a blog post and you're like, oh yeah, whatever, and then you don't really realize that, oh my gosh, so many hours went into that. And then it's, you know, you can write something and put it on the blog, but then it's actually trying to get it out there, trying to get it past the Facebook and algorithm and the Instagram algorithm. So yeah, I think if you really, and this just doesn't go for CaliWoods too, but you know, if you're on a page and you actually like it, you can go to the page and go follow, and then you can go always see first. So you can actually control the algorithm a little bit as a consumer too. So it's like if you're liking something from somebody, then make sure you go and sort of like backdoor it and actually get to see their content, because you only get really 3% visibility on organic unless you pay to show it to people now.
Yes, and I mean, it's what you mentioned also before about this digital like amount of stuff that we have. Like if you go to Facebook and you actually select who you want to see there, then your feed might actually be such an uplifting, beautiful feed instead of a lot of negativity and fear-based news or whatever that is. So I think that it's like we have a little bit of control there.
Sure, for sure.
Yes.
And then also emails, you know, like a direct email from somebody is from, you know, you to you, and it's kind of cuts out that middleman. So I think if you're engaging with somebody and you like it, then I think the emails are quite a good way to keep in touch with people too.
Awesome. Cool. So make sure, guys, that everybody follows CaliWoods, check their website and check Instagram and Facebook, CaliWoods_eco. Like it's going to be on the episodes notes as well, so you can actually just see all of that there. But thank you so much, Shay, for taking the time to be here and talk to me, and you can share a little bit of your story and what you do, which I think that it's awesome.
You're welcome, Brian, and thank you so much for having me, and thanks to everybody who's listened as well.
Awesome. And yes, I hope that everybody's doing well during this time, and if you're listening to this, that you take something out of it, and we'd love to hear from you. So if you are hearing this episode, what did you like about it? What have you learned? And like just share that on the comments on Instagram or Facebook or anywhere that we are sharing this. So until the next time, thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.